same year that Stanford is sent to jail, Ralph Natale is released. Natale joins forces with his protege and Stanford rival, Joey Merlino. Natale and Merlino appoint themselves as boss and underboss.
We're giving out turkeys.
You eventually hook up with Joey Merlino and the Philadelphia family. Before this happened, were you aware of Joey Merlino?
Well, we used to see Joey on A&E, and they used to do specials on him. And so I knew who he was, and I knew what was going on down there. They were having a war at the same time that we were, you know. First, someone reached out to Pete Gaudy to have a meeting with him. But Pete said that, because I wanted to be a member of the Gambino family. Pete said he couldn't do anything for me because there's already a sitting family up there, and the rules are the rules. He couldn't get involved. So I went down to Philadelphia. Frankie Rossi, who was with me, was friends with Ralph Natale in prison. They were good friends. And Frankie brought me down and introduced me to Ralph Natale, and that's how that relationship got started with Philadelphia.
What was your first impression of Ralph Natale?
I liked Ralph. I heard a lot of good things. He handled himself while in prison. I met him. He was a gentleman. I think we hit it off pretty good together. And I respected him.
When you were brought into that family and started hanging around these guys, were you under the impression that Ralph was the boss of that family?
No. Joey was the boss. Ralph was his front guy. Although Ralph didn't know that, but Ralph was his front guy. Joey was running that family.
How did that become apparent to you? Just through the guys?
Well, you know, around these guys long enough, you see what's going on. You can understand. And even Ralph said the power was in Philly with Joey. You know, but, you know, Joey made him, and the same night he made him a boss at that same meeting, which is kind of unheard of. But, you know, they had plans from prison. Ralph came out, and he joined the pack. I think Joey felt Ralph was a little older. He knew all these New York guys. He'd be a good buffer between him and New York, which I believe he was. I think Joey made a good move with him at that time, putting him up front like that.
Yeah, because Ralph had been involved in the life for quite a long time. Is that right?
Yeah, well, he was in the Teamsters Union. I don't know if he was representative. He did something there. And yeah, he was around those guys. He grew up around that mob. You know, being in the Teamsters or any unions down there, you know, we're involved in the Mafia. There's no way to get around that. So at some point, and I don't know how far it went, but Ralph definitely was involved.
How do you think Joey is viewed today by guys that are on the streets that are a part of that life?
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't believe anybody's ever going to sit down with him again. You know, never officially again. It's not going to happen. So I don't know how they're looking at him or if they even care, to be honest with you.
Now, eventually you do become a made man in that family. At the time, though, you had a big crew, you had money. What was your motivation and wanting to become a made man? Because you already had power before that.
Well, I just wanted, to me, it was a type of, you got to remember something. You know, the brass ring on the street is to become a made guy with the Italians.
Right.
You know, and that's what I hungered for. But more or less, I just wanted my crew straightened out to have protection. What happens, these wise guys from the Petriarca family started coming home because they were made guys. Even though I had that power, you know, they would still have influence in the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to knock that down. It was a business move. I got $1 million cocaine business, loan shark business, sports business, and I wasn't giving it up to nobody. And I really didn't want to go back to war. We just went through it. But that probably would have started happening if I didn't make the move I made or if I was still on the street.
So even though you were based out of Boston, when these guys started coming home from prison, the guys that were members of the Patriarca family, did you have any issue with them? I mean, even though you were you were made in Philly, but you were based in Boston. Did they still respect the title that you were a made guy and eventually a captain?
They had to. They didn't have a choice. If they were strong enough, I could have never done that. So, you know, you got to bow down to the strength. But I knew more and more of them were coming home. So I didn't know what the outcome would be. But the Philly crew, guys I made, they're still up there in Boston. So.
Right. Now, you said a minute ago that as boss of the family, Joey Merlino inducted you into that family. Can you speak about that experience?
Well, you know, I still respect it and don't like to talk about it too much. But I'll just say there was a dozen guys in the room. We had a ceremony, and I became a member of the family. Me and another guy. I don't want to say his name. But, you know, it was something at the time. It really was. But now, look back on it, doesn't mean anything. He took me into the family. He made me. I had a lot of respect for Joey. I think Joey's a stand-up guy, and I'll say that all the time.